Liz from Night Owl Crafts Australia, and this is my able assistant Tosh. This is part 2 on the fermentation of vegetables. In part 1 we looked at the making of sauerkraut, and today we're going to look at making kimchi. Traditional Korean kimchi is made using a Napa cabbage, or what is in our country Australia like a wombok Chinese cabbage, which is an elongated cabbage. They cut this into quarters and leaving the stem part intact, which holds all the leaves together. They then smear each of the leaves with the pickled vegetable mixture, which we'll discuss, and then they will fold it up and place it into an earthenware jar or a container of some sort, and then put it in a cool place to ferment. The main ingredient of kimchi, whether you do it in the traditional Korean method or in a more anglicised version, which we'll be doing today, the main ingredient is the cabbage. You can use the Chinese cabbage, wombok or Napa cabbage, or just the ordinary white cabbage that you get in every supermarket in Australia. In addition to the cabbage, we will be using spring onions, chilies. You can use red pepper flakes instead of chilies, garlic, and kimchi has a lot of garlic in it, ginger, white onion, radishes, which we'll be slicing thinly. The traditional kimchi would use daikon radish instead of these little red radishes. And the traditional kimchi would also use fish sauce, dried fish, fermented shrimps with the liquid that they're in. Different families in Korea would have their own recipes with lots of different ingredients that they would add to their kimchi. This is an example of a batch that I have made previously. As it is beginning to ferment, you will notice that it starts to produce bubbles. In addition to looking for the bubbles, you should also sniff it every day or two, and it should smell fresh, slightly tangy, certainly not an off smell. It should also have no signs of mold or anything else. If it smells bad or it develops mold, then dispose of it and start again. It is unusual, if you've followed the process, that it would turn bad. So just check it as it's progressing along its fermentation. Okay, we'll just prepare the base flavours of the chili and the ginger and the garlic. I'm using a little food processor, a magic bullet, to do this, to just crush them up. Okay, so we've just blitzed up the chilies, the onion, the garlic and the ginger. We're going to be using the leftover cabbage that we used when we were making the sauerkraut in the last video, and adding to it some chopped spring onions and the sliced radishes. Just slice them fairly thinly. We will also be slicing the small radishes using a mandolin, which will protect your fingers while slicing it very thinly. The hand grip is essential because it is extremely sharp and you don't want to be including any of your fingers in the pickles. So into our cabbage, shredded cabbage that's been salted, we'll add the spring onions or shallots. We'll then add all the sliced radishes. And the ginger, garlic, chili mixture, which may need a little bit of help scooping it out. The traditional Korean version would add a rice flour and water mixture that had been cooked till it was thick, and that would make this mixture more paste-like, and that would then be smeared onto the cabbage leaves. So our version is differing slightly from the traditional Korean version. To this mixture we will then add our bit of soya sauce, a couple of teaspoons worth. We'll then give it a thorough mixing, and then we will add it to the container. The mixture will last in the fridge for a year or more, and it will develop quite a rosy red hue. So at this point we will pack it into one of the glass containers, and again the cabbage will release moisture, and you're looking for the fluid level to come over the top of the mixture. Okay, we'll be packing it into its glass jar. The action of the probiotics, the salty base to the mixture, means that it is inhospitable to bad bacteria. The traditional Korean version would use red pepper flakes, and you can add however much or little of the red pepper flakes or chilies that you want to ramp up or reduce the spiciness of the mixture. We'll just continue to tamp it down and add the last of the mixture into the bottle. And similar to the sauerkraut, you can use a cabbage leaf over the top to hold everything below the water level. If you have leftover sauerkraut or kimchi that has fermented, you can use some of the liquid from the previous batch to add to the new batch, as that will be high in lactobacilli and will give a kick start to your new batch. So we're just pressing down the mixture so that it leaves about an inch of head space at the top. Get the last of the mixture off the rolling pin. And I can already start feeling moisture is beginning to come to the surface. But as mentioned, if after a few hours the water is not, or fluid is not covering the mixture, make up your own mixture of a pint of distilled or non-chlorinated water with 2 teaspoons of salt to the 1 pint, and add that over the top to ensure that everything, all the solid material, is sitting below the waterline. You can see that the water fluid level is starting to form at the bottom, and it will gradually creep up until it is visible over the top of the cabbage mixture. As with sauerkraut, you can use a piece of cabbage leaf and just put it over the top of the mixture so that when the fluid comes up, the cabbage leaf will help hold the solids below the fluid level, and you can then place a weighted glass or some other sort of weight on the top of that to keep it all down. So this is now left out at room temperature for 3 to 4 days, checking on it each day to see whether it's making bubbles and whether the process of fermentation has started. When it is well underway and it is bubbly and smelling fresh and tangy, then you can put a cover on it and put it in the fridge. With any of these pickled vegetables, you may want to sit it on a plate during that 3 to 4 days, just in case the fluid overflows the top of the container, which can happen if you filled it fairly close to the top. You can fill a glass with water and just sit that on the top to help weigh it all down. And in probably a half to an hour or two, this fluid level will rise and gradually cover the entire mixture. So we've now completed our batch of not quite Korean traditional kimchi and our sauerkraut. These, once they're fermented, will, as I said, stay in the fridge for 12 months or more and keep fresh. The sauerkraut is lovely in hot dogs and in salads, very nice with sausages and mashed potato. And the kimchi, or not quite kimchi, mixture can be used in stir fries, with salads, eaten on its own, and both contain probiotics that are very good for your intestinal system. To store the pickled vegetables during their initial fermentation at room temperature, place them somewhere that is not too hot, out of direct sunlight, and as I said, just check on them each day to make sure that they're progressing as they should. Tosh, the able assistant, has put herself to bed and is showing no signs of interest in our pickled vegetables. This has been Night Owl Crafts Australia. Please remember to subscribe and click the like button if you found this helpful.